I'm Pat. I'm the CRO at Jacquard, and I'm going to let Jasmine and Jake introduce themselves. Jasmine, we'll start with you.
Jasmine Kim, head of Care at Home, and also North America marketing for health.
Jake Schneider, head of marketing and brand for Gold's Gym.
Awesome. So today's topic is the sort of the future and evolution of the customer journey, and you guys both are coming at this from there's a lot of similarities and some differences as well in terms of bridging physical and digital experiences together from a customer journey perspective. And I know, Jasmine, you actually had a slide on this I want to pull up and let you sort of kick off about how you're approaching tying those two sort of physical and digital experiences together.
First of all, thank you so much for having us. So health and wellness is going to be about $1.8 trillion business. And obviously, we've all experienced it through COVID. 10 to 15% of that is now digital health, and it's just going to continue to grow. And one of the key things that we're doing at Samsung is how do we actually, and obviously we're known for all of our digital tech, but then also those of us who you may or you may not know, hopefully you do, we have TVs and appliances in the home. So how do we actually tie things that are like your inner circle of your the Ring, your watch, your apps actually to talk to the physicality of things that are in your home, like the refrigerator, the alert system, air purifier, et cetera, to tilt it toward to giving you insights toward health. So that's what we're doing. And also you will see that we're going to do a demonstration. Obviously, we have a pavilion at the digital health area in the Venetian with the ARP really to showcase, because we believe that the first kind of beachhead will be people over 50. But I think that we've learned during COVID that everybody is aging and living at home. We're going to school at home. We're actually working from home, and people are aging and they actually want to stay at home. So we're looking to how do we actually connect the dots so that it's a simplified experience for the end user as well as anybody who's giving care and to the actual healthcare provider.
Thanks. And Jake, it's such an iconic brand like Gold's, where you have such an important sort of local presence in the community, but also sort of all the digital capabilities that you've been working on. How are you guys thinking about it?
Yeah, we're approaching it from an inside out, right? Because we are brick and mortar first and then expanding into digital. The thing I love about Jasmine's trend here is, that they're willing to pay more, but they expect a better experience. And we have to take into account and have the empathy to understand that personalization is an expectation now. Right? We as brands are expected to know and understand what our customers and our members are thinking, feeling, doing, what drives them, and what kind of prompts them to act. And so our challenge is always, we are known for picking up heavy things and putting them down. It's very simple. But how do we take very complex things that are now happening, right? Everyone has some sort of fitness tracker on them. Everybody's managing their data. They're looking at their glucose. They're trying to figure out how to stay healthier longer or how to optimize and get stronger, whatever their version of stronger is, whether it's mentally, physically, emotionally. And so we have to come up with a plan to be able to lay a roadmap outside of just walk in and get a membership, but to actually kind of support and move people forward utilizing these types of experiences.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And as I'm sure you guys are working internally, what are some of the challenges you've maybe faced or sort of working on now as you've sort of pushed your teams internally to be more innovative and come up with sort of new or fresh approaches to the customer journey and the user life cycle?
One of the things that we're doing at Samsung, obviously Samsung, if you look at all of our branding and all of our advertising, it's really geared toward, has been, especially in the wearable, the watch, the phone app. Samsung Health app has been really focused on kind of 18 to 40. And one of the key things when you start to look at how we are going to connect care at home with the refrigerator, the appliances, your caregiver, we are looking at a kind of a little different entryway, which is what we call health aware and also health concern and also health exhausted. And that's basically a huge cohort of that are people over 50 and also a lot of what I call chief health officers, which tend to be women who are caregivers and as well as a lion's share of care receivers. So one of the things that we're doing is we're really partnering with companies and brands like AARP to really get their landmark research, working them with the panel, creating a UX process with them to work with their volunteer team, as well as working with MIT Age Lab. And we also have created a living lab where we're working with actual real estate developers about how do we actually put people into living labs where we could actually test out how does somebody use sleep apnea that's available on their watch, and then how does it talk to a doctor who's prescribing a certain kind of diet that might be good or bad for your whatever the condition you have, to the refrigerator, to if that person is not sleeping well or maybe has anxiety and needs medication, that a caregiver, a casual caregiver as well as a care provider could actually widen the aperture and say, not just maybe give you more prescription, but say that, oh, we noticed that you haven't opened your refrigerator in 2 days, and so maybe you should eat properly. Or the fact that you haven't walked outside your house to get fresh air, so we actually start to look at you in a more holistic way. And I think so one is partnering with really incredible people to do research, and then two, how do we start to stitch together our internal silos and divisions within Samsung to actually reflect how you might look at your health and health and wellness in a holistic manner. And I think one of the challenges is trying to break down the silo and then having people to think beyond their kind of the proverbial box of kind of my own KPI and, oh, we're only going to measure refrigerator sales versus how does that refrigerator help somebody improve health.
Yeah, and really interesting. Jake, how are you guys looking at it?
One of our biggest challenges, all of that aside, because it's all true, is to not get, as the kids say, lost in your own sauce a little bit, and look towards other parallel industries that are really doing it well, right? So, for example, hospitality does things really well. And to put it into context of what we have here, who in here is their first CES? Anybody? Perfect. So when you looked for hotels and things to go to, unless it was set up for you by someone else, you looked at price and proximity, right? And that's a challenge that we have to look at. Now you come into your hotel, you have a great experience, Brand Innovators rolls everything out, and you go back to your daily lives next week, right? And next year when you come back, where are you going to go? If you had a really great experience, you're going to come back to that same hotel, those same restaurants, because there's a familiarity. You feel like you belong. It's the same thing with us, right? So looking at taking price and proximity out of the equation and looking towards how hospitality, really, someone mentioned kind of a flywheel. I think it's a little more of an infinity loop where we're consistently proving the experience is good and that this isn't just a place where you're a customer or a member, but for golds, no matter where you are in your journey, whether you are starting today and want to get fitter, or you want to go compete in a high rocks competition, or maybe do a little powerlifting, or maybe get into bodybuilding. Some of you look like you have potential. That it keeps you coming back, that it's a place that you belong, right? And that's how we get out of the four walls of a gym and really start talking about how we build community. And then everything else from an experience standpoint, whether it's communications, frictionless digital extensions, social, entertainment, how we leverage data, is designed to keep you engaged and to keep you coming back or to signal that we need to do better.
That's awesome. And you brought up data, and that's the next topic, right? So what data and insights do you look for in terms of how you analyze the success of customer journeys? And we talked in our prep about the difference between data and insights, right? So how do you think about data, leveraging data to sort of like make the informed decisions you need to make and get the insights that you need at a consumer level?
So I think, especially in health, sometimes there's a lot of noise. And so except for the people who tend to be kind of quantify self, oftentimes you get more than you really need, and also there's data that is not necessarily something that's going to nudge you. So one of the key things that we really look at is how do we actually make data something that's snackable, that you would actually modify your behavior just a little bit every day so that you could have actually a notable health outcome down the road. And so one of the things that so we're constantly looking at is how do we, number one, work cross-functional, which is really challenging. And I think the other part about setting up data that is actually useful for the consumer is to actually set up an internal admin panel that actually reverses our company inside out in a sense, because I think one of the biggest challenges, I don't know if it's for you guys, but it's actually internal Samsung silo to cut that through so that we actually work toward the end user and the data. And then the second part is like, is the data enough so that you actually are going to continue doing what you're doing, little tiny habits every day? And so we do a lot of work with behavior modification and kind of behavior science, so that how much data do you need enough so that you're encouraged? How much social validation do you need so that you continue on? And that's really, really critical in health. Because most of health, the entire healthcare system is set up so that we pay everything in insurance, everything pays you once you get sick, but we're trying to get you to stay healthy. And staying healthy, nobody pays you for it, so you actually, nobody wants to pay attention to any data until there's like something goes off the rails. So how do we do little by little so that we actually nudge you toward a big health outcome? And that's what we're trying to do. So that is actually working with huge, PhDs of behavioral science that we've never done before. A lot of gaming theory that we had before, which is also interesting because Samsung has a lot of work on gaming and mobile. So that's the kind of work that we're trying to do to nudge you.
Yeah, I imagine at Samsung you have a lot of data across different teams, so that's a big challenge.
Useful, I think, is the question.
Yeah, exactly. Jake, what about you guys?
The strategist in me wants to talk about how data says that a tomato is a fruit, and an insight tells you not to put it in a fruit salad. But I think it's really important, and Jasmine kind of touched on it, is to go all the way back, because there is a lot of data. We've never had more accessible data than we do right now, and we will never have as little again tomorrow. And to be able to put into place the infrastructure that is necessary and the work around it so that we don't get caught in a loop of confirmation bias, right? Especially with the word that brought you all here, artificial intelligence, AI. Also, shout out CS is back. Like, I've never felt like in the past 4 years this kind of energy that we've got around it. And I think it's due
Definitely.
in part to the curiosity around AI and where we are, but to have the infrastructure in place to be able to ask the right questions and then connect all of that together to devices, to physical locations, and really be able to drive home what is important to the end user in order to keep them interested, engaged, and coming back. Again, everything has a layer of empathy somewhere surrounding that layer of AI.
Well, you brought up AI, so everyone has to take a shot. No, just kidding. And obviously, Jacquard, we're an AI platform for brand content, so I'd be remiss if I didn't ask what types of tools you both are using internally, whether it's AI, machine learning. Obviously, Samsung has a ton of physical devices as well. What types of tools are you guys using internally to help sort of bolster and create that next generation customer experience?
So I'm going to speak more about the product development side and not necessarily go to market, because a lot of our products are still kind of in incubation. But obviously, we use a lot of machine learning and AI to, like, it's hard for manually to look at sleep apnea data of 1,000 people, or your otolarynx of getting images, actually taking images and actually replicating that. And so obviously we're using a lot of ML, but I think the other, and actually product development, but I think what's also important that a lot of companies don't think about is that how do we use AI for go-to-market? And that's another thing that which I'll just loop back on, is that we use a lot of AI in what we call nudging behavior. And that is also really, really critical in health. And so, because most of us, or maybe I shouldn't speak for everybody, but I will, we will all have signed up something, a new regimen for January, and by third or fourth week of January, 40% of us will be off that regimen because we're too tired, or it doesn't have a sticking point. So we are really working toward AI in kind of nudging and figuring out what actually motivates you to go to the next level. So is it social? Is it giving you data? Is it giving you reminders? Is it giving you content? Is it giving you images? So that's another really huge chunk of the AI that we're using to create behavior science and outcome.
Yeah, we were talking about, what was it, Jake, National Quit Day?
Yeah, National Quit Day. It's Friday, everyone. It's the time where you've made all your resolutions after you've backed out of the Thanksgiving table and said, this is a new year, new me. And, you know, we can joke about those pieces, but there is an insight in there and an unlock as to why. Do I not feel a part of this? Is this something that's not sustainable? Am I not getting the right support? And for us, you know, undergoing a digital transformation over the next year in terms of experience and how we can interact both online through devices, through partners, and in gym is really a priority for us. And laying those kind of foundations. It seems like, you know, well, we're here at CES, you should have already laid those foundations. But again, going back, we are still looking at how to be more intentional approaching it, because if we were to start just out saying, hey, we know what you want and here's what it is, it would be a lot of hubris for us. So really understanding what our members and the people who are in our gyms want and need to get out of it, because there are so many different people in a different stage of where they are. And so just layering every piece of that to be able to accelerate, because that's really what AI is, right? It's an accelerant. It's an extension of us, making us better, quicker, faster to understand. But if we don't have that infrastructure first, we're only going to get basic questions. A really funny AI story is that we were at the U2 experience last night, and my wife, who's in the back of the room, caught someone prompting a text thread to the family. So she was prompt writing, and we joked, simplify, expand. And then she cut and pasted it and put it in the text thread, and then added emojis to it so it was personalized. And so we were just questioning about how real it felt to the entire rest of the family who got that text message. It's to not let it be generic. People who will be connected to your brand, if your experience is right, if they feel seen, if they see themselves in what you're pushing out, and if they're entertained, inspired, or educated. If you're generic and you're not, then they're more likely to leave. Communication is all brand. AI is all brand.
Both of your brands right now are going through a big period of innovation and growth. And Jasmine had a great post about the big exhibit that Samsung just had. So you definitely go see Jasmine and everything that they've got going on at CES. But as you take all the stuff that you're doing today and you look forward 5 years, where do you see things going from a innovation, engagement, retention standpoint, with all of the new tools and all of the new sort of products and things that you guys have coming out? I know you both have been working hard on launching some new initiatives.
Thank you for that question. I'll just tell you a personal story. My mother, who's 85, has clinical depression, and she lives in East Coast. And oftentimes I'll talk to her. I mean, she's highly functional, very independent. And oftentimes she'll call me and she says, I think I need to talk to a doctor. I'm really feeling down today. I think I need more meds. And my hope is that through the work that we're doing, kind of integrating digital and physical, that I'll be able to really look at her routine on a cursory note and say, oh, Mom, you know what? You haven't walked outside in 2 days. And so I think instead of calling the doctor, I think you should go take a walk. Or the fact that because she hasn't opened the refrigerator, that her information is getting sent to the caregiver, who's me, or a care provider, a clinical person. And the fact that and the fact that maybe because of the urine tests and the toilet and the mirror, that information is being sent with her privacy in a continuous manner, so that we could actually provide more continuous reading, an ambient as well as explicit reading, and give a holistic health to her, and not just like having a doctor increase her meds or one of us, and it's not be based on routine, just her daily routine. So you'll have a point where you get to kind of establish your routine. What are you doing, your physical, and everything from that condition to just me trying to stay healthy, or the fact that I have a trainer who trains with me on cycling. He could just say, I might say, you know what, I just couldn't get the 25th mile today. And he might say, oh, Jasmine, you look like you didn't sleep really well. That's the reason why. Or I don't know if you remember, but you had coffee, and that's the reason, opposed to like work harder, do weights, and I don't know why I'm not actually delivering the performance. And so that's kind of our vision. And we look at kind of the inner ring as the things that it's moving with you wherever your home is. Your home is as you sit right here. The secondary would be whatever you actually create your domain. It could be your home, it could be an aggregate living space, it could be a mobile home, or it could, be outer space for all we care. And then the third is like however you want to connect to the larger ecosystem, from Gold Gym in one end to my doctor on the other one, the whole continuum. We don't do hospital at home, but just shy of acute care. If you needed to rehab at home after getting a meniscus surgery from skiing, we would actually be enabling you to do that without having to figure out your Uber, get out of your house to get to the doctor for your weekly checkup. So that's kind of our vision. And we like to say that's very future, but we're actually doing that pretty close to today. So I think that it's kind of around the corner, and the whole focus would be that how do we make it really simple and useful for you rather than overwhelming you, as well as to overwhelm the healthcare giver and provider along the spectrum. Because as much as they might want all this data, they actually don't, and it's a lot of noise. And healthcare is also siloed, just like some of our companies are. And so it's also to train them to think in a holistic manner. So that's what our hope is.
That's a great use case that you brought up, and all of us, I think, have people in our lives that would be incredibly beneficial. So that's awesome. Jake, what about you? How are you thinking about it?
I mean, the amount of data can be overwhelming, and it can lead you in all kinds of directions. I think simplified, what we hope from an experience is to help people better understand themselves, so that they can go and perform at whatever their peak is. Whenever you walk into our facilities and work out, and you feel connected and a part of this, but also like maybe you're busting out max reps, maybe you're hitting the treadmill a little bit longer. We want you walking out feeling good, and that you've accomplished. That sense of accomplishment is also something that kind of can drive people and takes them out into the world feeling healthier and happier about themselves and what they can accomplish. So.
One of the through lines in both of your answers there is this concept of personalization in some way, right? And when we were discussing, the evolution of the customer journey, there's always this delicate balance between the consumer expectation is an extremely contextually personalized and relevant experience, but then you have to balance that with data, regulatory, privacy concerns, obviously health and wellness. There's a lot of things to be sort of mindful of there. How do you think about sort of balancing that sort of the two sides of that coin as you look to sort of build out your strategies going forward?
Obviously, with health, there's wellness and there's health care. So obviously, having incredible level of privacy and all the partners who come into your ecosystem. But I think the other thing is that most people, at least in 2025, quarter into this new century, I think that we are, I'm going back to the nudging, is that we are all playing a health game, whether it's explicit or implicit. So how do we get you along the journey, the entire health journey, in little bits and pieces? And also, how do we show you benefits so that you're willing to actually part with data with full privacy understanding? And that's a really important thing. But then the other thing that the privacy issue is also really challenging, because it's not just with Samsung. We have to really start, and we already are, I think, a lot of good people are, but the healthcare system, getting access to your healthcare records. I don't know how many of you guys know, but how many people actually have access to their medical records on your watch or your mobile phone or your Samsung or Apple or what have you, right? I don't know if you know, but also if you're using 3 different healthcare systems, you have to sign in for each one. And also, if you have any family members, that you need access to. Like I have I have a college-age son who lives in another state. That has to be, like, you have to actually get his permission because he's over 18. And then that has to be renewed every year. So I think there are a lot of policymakers now working about how do we actually continue some of the benefit lessons learned during COVID when everything went digital to people wanting some level of control, as well as how do we actually toggle digital and physical, because your health, like, we're embodied. The reason we call it embodied experience because it's in our body. So we have to access physical specimens. We do need to touch and we need to actually see you. Doctors need to touch you. We need, so I think that is going to be a really interesting challenge as we go forward, because it's not just Samsung, and we hope to play a role in it, but it's actually the entire ecosystem of healthcare providers like Epic and et cetera who are working on that data piece.
For us, I think when you go back to the experience, everybody's been in a situation where you meet someone and then you see them again and they miss your name. I get Jack all the time, right? It gives you a little bit of an ick, right? And I'm willing to bet almost all of us have received a push notification or an email for a product you would never buy. And to me, context and helping someone feel seen is just as important as nailing a spot or a workout or a frictionless experience on digital. It is a key ingredient to brand. And in an industry where we're not linear, there is no endpoint. And it is flywheel-ish to an extent, but again, how do we keep this out of price and proximity? If you're having a poor experience, if you don't feel seen, if you don't feel heard, and we're not being great stewards of the data because we aren't being contextual to you, because your journey is different than these people over here or this grouping or this individual, I think that is the most important piece.
Well, that's the last question I have is a tough one. CES this week. What are you guys looking forward to most before we open it up to the audience here for some questions? What's most exciting for you as you think about the next couple days?
Well, this might be. I'll tell you.
Be selfish. Be selfish. Talk about your.
Really selfish. People say it's the year of the women, or was the year of the women. We'll see how it goes. But there's an incredible amount of focus on women's health, and also there's an incredible amount of focus on sexual health, so sexual wellness. And so I'm really interested in seeing what everybody's bringing. 40% of the participants are global. And so especially when things come to your body and your health, there's a lot of cultural values that are embedded, and there's a lot of learning from all over the world that I'm really dying to see. So that's the one area.
That's awesome.
And sleep. I'm all for sleep. Sleep is like foundation for all of our health. Some of you guys out there, I think we need some more sleep. So I'm really looking for everything in sleep health.
Right. Everybody go to bed after this.
Yeah, well, not for our talk.
Don't go out to any fancy dinners or happy hours. Exactly. Get up and go to the gym in the morning. Everybody gets sleep now. But it's true. There is a massive, and I love it, kind of initiative around recovery. Mm-hmm. We all focus on, I'm going to get in my workout, I'm going to get in my max reps, I'm going to PR, I'm going to do all these things, I'm going to run 10 miles today. But we don't think about, like, you hear it all the time, oh, I'm sore, did you stretch? Well, no. And I'm looking forward to the intention around recovery. And I also use CES because this is going on 12, 13 years now as kind of a litmus test of how far we've progressed on certain items, right? So it follows novelty to application to usability and to see how far we've pushed AI in a year. To see, I mean, if you've been going long enough, you remember when the Sands was just packed with 3D printers, right? And it's so small now. 3 years ago, we were talking NFTs. If you were lucky enough to be one of the 16 people here, we were talking NFTs and crypto, and that fell off the novelty and application piece. But I really think and love how AI has brought the fire back here. So looking to see new applications and how it's being used.
That's awesome. So I know the prior session ran a little short, so we have time for some questions from the audience if folks want to.
Let me run there. It's all
Yeah,
right.
Health
Listen,
and
this is the
wellness,
last
John.
panel, so don't throw spicy stuff out there.
Solid Tom Sass shoes, by the way.
Thank you.
Have him in my room as well. This was by far the best panel. Past CES, CS before. I have a passion for data and fitness. So privacy is important. I love everything about the Samsung world. So cause and effect in the health world, personally, how do you help educate the people that have wearables? I'm a Whoop owner and I work at it at 45, do cold plunge, all that. But so how do you educate? Because the plethora of data that is in the Samsung device, the Oura Ring, the Whoop, et cetera, it is white noise personally to people as well. And they're just like, it's cool. Well, what is your restoration or what is this? How do you guys both from a brand perspective, I did X workout, I ate this, and my outcome was this. How do you start to spend time on the education on the one-to-one side of things so that devices can truly be used to what they're intended for, and then the health side of eating, using the refrigerator, and then going to the gym and doing the correct thing? How do you guys spend time on both of those? Thank you.
I don't know if I could directly address, but so that's a very specific persona. And so obviously Samsung products are to mass, right? So we look at 2 or 3 personas, and we're hoping that our AI would actually start to figure out do you want that kind of level of, you're like a quantified self persona, like how you describe, versus, it's really casual, and maybe I'd even know that we have AFib de novo technology in your watch and Samsung's watches that actually could measure your oxygen level, et cetera. So I think it's really to create what we call baseline. Everything is based on what your initial routine is established, and then we go from how does this deviate from your normal routine? And hopefully you're making outcome little by little, nudging you toward a better, but sometimes it really deep, and that's when we start to say whoa, something's gone off the rail, we give you data, right? But I think that the other part that is very, very interesting is to what extent that, that causal thing, that's still a holy grail. Sometimes, as much data that we have, a lot of even doctors don't know sometimes, we could infer that this maybe affected that. So I think that we look for holistic information that you could use to improve your health and fitness, nudging little by little. And we are working obviously with key doctors and also people who are trusted in the vertical space. I think another thing I should really say is that also in everything that you said is important, but I think trust is really important. So having content and having key data that is actually from a trusted source to nudge you along is really key. So we are also not only doing things B2C, but we are looking to B2B2C and having everything from, who is Mr. Beast? I didn't know that because I come from healthcare, to literally having Dr. Hyman talk to you or a sleep expert talk to you in those little nudging areas or give you, and that's what we're doing to kind of provide expertise or correlation or get you to move.
You're doing a great job. Are those pandas? Are those Jordans? Oh, nice. I think for us, and I constantly have to remind ourselves that we are not a technology company, right? But flipping it a little bit, we have to think like a data and entertainment company that's gym and fitness forward, that's physical forward. A lot of that has to come with great partners, right? Whoop, Aura, the incredible technologies. To your point, I think that you're self-selected, but to better understand and leverage the data to move someone to your point. And I'll use my own personal example. So a long time ago, I and a couple of other coworkers convinced our boss that if we left early to go run, it would reduce our healthcare costs. And so we did, and by happenstance, we started our own small run club that then a mile became 6, became, I think I can run a marathon, and then all of a sudden we're checking, our GPS, we're running routes, we're doing our diet and all of those pieces. Then we're going and lifting because we want to get stronger to run marathons better. I think going back to the infrastructure and organizing data and structuring data so that it doesn't prove out confirmation bias, but really starts to not just answer questions, but ask deeper questions around where those behavioral tipping points are, that motivates a person from, hey, maybe I want to lift, to, hey, maybe I should get a Whoop, to, hey, I'm tracking my sleep vigorously, right?
Awesome. Thank you guys very much. We are at time. Jasmine, Jake, Patrick, let's give it up for them.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.